Let's go, baby. JD's, I know that's music to your ears and the entire Team Wilder. That's what you've been wanting to hear. I know there's a lot of work still to be done. These contract negotiations can be tedious, but it's looking good for Wilder versus Joshua. And I hope this year, Jay, what's your gut feeling?
Well, if Joshua were in some sort of a really, really big war and or he was cut or his hands were sore or something, I could see, the thinking behind maybe the end of the year, early next year, but that wasn't the case. So we think summertime and we're ready to go. We had certainly a much more exciting and challenging fight in the Final Four, our half of the Final Four, than he did. So we are ready to go summertime. Like you said, there's a lot of negotiations, but the bottom line is he issued the challenge, and you know what? We accept. We accept.
All right, Jay. I know this is a fluid situation, and I understand there's a lot of money involved. As I said earlier on the show, this would be the biggest fight in boxing in a long, long time, a unification fight for all 4 heavyweight belts. Where does it stand? How much has to be done? Is Deontay willing to fight over there on the European turf? And will there be a return fight here in the United States? Can you give us some insight into what exactly you're trying to negotiate right now with his side?
Well, we're just at the beginning point of making contact and seeing. The first thing you do is you see, how far you are apart right off the jump. It's almost like being on a jury, and you have, all right, how many think they're guilty and how many think they're innocent. So right off the start, I think we have a lot of things in common. Both of us would like a rematch clause, so that after the first fight, there potentially could be a second fight if the first fight warrants a second fight. We think that that's important, and so do they. So that's good news, and we're okay with taking the shorter end on the front end as long as, should we win the first fight, which we firmly believe we will, that the same thing applies to the second side. In other words, if we take 40-60 on the first fight and the rematch clause, we'd like 60-40.
Right.
And they seem to think that's good too. So far we're off to kind of an agreeable start. There's a lot of little particulars that come in, but yeah, it would be the biggest financial thing for Deontay and for Anthony. So I think, as management, that's what we all want. So I think in principle, we're on the same page.
Yeah. At the end of the day, Jay, let's cut through all the talk and all of the back and forth and all the finger pointing and, this guy and that guy. At the end of the day, it's about the money. And this is just too much money involved for this fight not to happen and not to happen fairly quickly, right?
I would think so because, and to answer your earlier question, yes, absolutely, we would travel. We will go to England. We'll go to the moon, wherever they want to do it. We're good with that. That is no issue at all. We have no qualms about that. We're good there. So as far as the like you said, the money is concerned, yes, I think to a certain degree in these type situations, you're playing with fire. Either of these guys could have a car accident. You could have a detached retina if you take another fight, a broken hand. There's a million things that could happen, especially with heavyweights, the way they all punch so hard. So, our thinking is when you have the opportunity to make, the financial benefits that would just be the best thing that's ever happened financially for both these guys, you should jump on it and not play with fire and just keep waiting and waiting. It's not going to get bigger by having more fights. It's a huge fight now. It's as big as it's going to get. The stadium's going to fill up, so I don't see any point in waiting, at least from our side.
Yeah, there's no doubt. So would we be looking most likely at Wembley Stadium for the first fight?
That's what I think. I think that would be, and I'm guessing that would be somewhere in the August, September, given the weather over there. I think August, September would be the most likely scenario, and we're on board with that. We're not the problem. We are ready to go. We accept the challenge, and it's just a matter of and you'd be amazed how specific some of these negotiations get. It can almost be laughable, but it's important stuff from glove selection to one thing that as a trainer, I'm want to bring up is I timed it the other night, and from the time Joseph Parker left the dressing room until the time of the first bell was like 23 minutes and 42 seconds or something like that. And that's too much.
Yeah.
I don't want Deontay standing in the ring for darn near half an hour.
You're cooled down.
Right, exactly. And they do that on purpose. I mean, they'll say it's for the show and for the fans and whatever, but the show and the fans aren't getting hit in the head. The show and the fans aren't risking their lives. So we would want that cut down. We understand that it's a show. We understand theatrics, pyrotechnics, et cetera, et cetera. But at the same time, we want to protect the interests of our fighters. And I don't think there's anything wrong with saying from the time we leave the dressing room, let's keep that to, 12 minutes or something like that. So I was just illustrating that to tell you how detailed the negotiations can be and why they sometimes take a little bit of time.
There's everything has to be covered from both sides' perspectives. You're a
especially
historian.
The referee too. Boy, was that a disaster.
What's that, Jay?
The referee as well.
Oh my gosh! Now you both sides have say so. Do you get a chance to approve the referee? Because you don't want to deal with something like that.
Yeah, we certainly have a list of guys, and Joshua has a list of guys, and somewhere in that list there's somebody we all like. Okay. I don't see that as a major issue, but we certainly. I would really be interested to know how that happened. For fans that don't know what I'm talking about, you've got a unification, not a unification, a situation where they're trying to unify some of the belts, not all the belts. Major 70,000 people in the stands, and they picked the referee who, number one, didn't speak English when both the combatants speak English, and number two, the guy really, for all intents and purposes, acted like he'd never refereed a fight in his life. So I don't know how that happens. We certainly don't want to have that happen.
Yeah, when you go to a heavyweight title fight, you kind of want to see a fight, don't you, Jay? Isn't that the idea?
Yeah, you certainly do. And I don't know what they were doing the other night, but we, like I said, we're on board. We want the fight. We all these things. I think a lot of these things can be quickly negotiated, and hopefully we get this thing, ready to go. And I know they'll probably want to do a media tour and all that, and that's all fine. And so whatever they want to do, we're on board with, as long as Deontay is treated fairly. And and that's we have to look after his interest, but we don't see any major hurdles to making the fight, and we hope they don't either.
Jay Deas is with us. I can hear the enthusiasm in your voice. And let's talk about the historical significance of this fight. I mean, a lot of people that are fight fans like myself and millions of others have been saying we need the heavyweight division to come back. It's been building toward this. Now, all of a sudden, you've got two undefeated champions, both of whom knock out just about everybody that they fight. This will be the first four-belt world heavyweight title fight. And two huge punchers, highly conditioned athletes, big, tall, and strong. I mean, where does this one rank, Jay, if it comes to fruition?
I think it's got to be right up there with taking us back to the last glory days where you had Tyson, Holyfield, Lennox Lewis, Riddick Bowe. You've got that kind of a caliber matchup before those four came along. The golden era before that was in the 70s with Ali, Foreman, Frazier, and Norton. And so this is this day, this time, this era, and the two that have come through the final four, the four best fought, and now it's down to the two. So I think that's very exciting for people everywhere, and people want this fight, and there's no reason not to have it.
I mentioned I could hear the enthusiasm in your voice, and I don't want people to take that the wrong way. It's just that you've been building for this moment. Let's go back in history. I mean, you're running Sky Gym, a tall, skinny basketball player walks into your gym and says, hey, I want to be a fighter. You take a look at him because that's what you do. You look at anybody that comes in the gym. You give him a shot to work out, and you saw something in him. He saw something in himself. He had a dream. You put together a goal. You go through Golden Gloves. You shock people and make the Olympic team. You medal as a heavyweight. You start this journey as a professional. all the way to the WBC Heavyweight Championship of the World. But even after that, it was a very fine and very slender plank you're walking, knowing that you can't afford a loss. A loss would have derailed this opportunity. So you've navigated all through all that now for 11 or 12 years to get to this moment. I mean, you know, it's understandable. You got to be elated. And I know there's work to be done, but this is what it's all been leading up to. And to just make it to this point, Jay, what an incredible accomplishment.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I appreciate that. It's I'm so kind of, sometimes you're so, you know, into the forest you can't see the trees. So I haven't really had a chance to sit back and kind of think of it that way. So that was really cool. I hope I can get a recording of what you just said.
It's podcast you can listen to, because that was a pretty accurate description of the way this thing went down, right?
Yeah, it was a lot of work and a lot of fun, and you know, we've taken it one at a time has been our approach. I know that's a cliche, but in boxing especially, you know, if you look past somebody, you'll find yourself looking up at the light, and it's that kind of sport. In football, you could be down 17-3, you know, overlooking an opponent. You've still got 3 quarters to go to get that back and get back on track. In boxing, the equivalent of being down 17-3, you know, could be that you're on the ropes, or you're on the floor, or you're out. And so it could end at any time. So it's amazing the number of things that have to go right and the number of correct decisions that you have to make. A lot of guys have all the talent in the world to be world champions, but they end up in, you know, whether it be litigation with a promoter or a manager, or, you know, personal problems, or they eat themselves out of a division, or, you know, girlfriend problems, or, you know, bad influence friend problems. There's just a million things that can happen. I heard a guy say one time that I thought was so applicable. He said, everything that you guys want is at the door at the end of the hall. He said, the problem is there's doors on either side all the way down. And, you know, you just need to go straight and go through that door at the end of the hall and not stop off at all these doors called, you know, distractions. And I was like, you know, that's very, very true. And for the most part, we've been able to do that. And I credit Deontay with a lot of that. He's extremely focused. And when everybody wants to talk about everything but the task at hand, you know, he'll talk about it, but in truth, he's focused on the job that's in front of him. And that's why he's won 40 in a row.
Yeah, and he's proven it time and again, because let's be honest about another thing. And you know what? His talent and the success that you've had, and you and him having a special bond, has brought in the likes of Shelly Finkel and Al Heyman, and you have this great team. But he has had to do this in the face of a lot of doubt. I mean, coming from Alabama, where there wasn't even a boxing commission, not a background in boxing. I mean, there have been people waiting for him to fail, just waiting to say, "We told you so," you know. And you've had to prove the doubters over and over. Even after he beat Stavern, people will keep saying, well, he can't beat this guy. He won't beat this guy. He won't beat Ortiz. It's a matter of time. The satisfaction that he and you must take from that has, I know, as I said, you got a big fight ahead, and you don't want to take anything for granted, but to be able to shut the naysayers up, that's got to feel good for you. Because, Jay, you know what people were saying when you started, even after the Olympics, even after he turned pro, you know, tomato cans for opposition. You know, he's a product of shrewd scheduling and so forth and so on. And to get to this point, there has to be a little bit of, you know, look at us, we told you so, right?
Well, yeah, I don't get into that as much as a lot of people do. You know, there's an old saying, listen to the people in the stands, and one day you'll be one of them.
Right.
So I don't get into that too much, because there's really nothing you can do about what people are going to say, especially with today's internet. You know, anybody. I mean, if you didn't like Dr. J back in the day, chances are he didn't know it, or his people didn't know it, or you know, you could write a letter to the 76ers and hope that it got through to him. That was about it. But today, you know, any and everybody can put out what they want. And I guess probably the frustrating thing from your point of view is, you know, when you've gone to school for it and you've studied it and you've honed your craft and people have hired you, and yet some guy that nobody's ever hired or would ever hire in a million years can put out 100 times more material, and you know, none of it verified. They don't have to check back. They don't have to do anything. So those people don't really bother me, because they're always going to be there. I take more satisfaction just in that we're doing what we set out to do, and that we thought we could do. And that's really more where the satisfaction comes from for me.
A byproduct of this, and I've told this story many times since I've known you, and of course there are people there that grew up with you, have known you a lot longer than I have, but boxing's always been a passion for you, and you were doing this long before you met Deontay Wilder, and you had Sky Gym operating, and you were putting on fights with no boxing commission, doing everything you could to keep a sport alive in an area where it wasn't a marquee sport, particularly with the University of Alabama sports here. But through your association with Deontay and what you've accomplished, it's really helped you as far as I know your gyms and the free gym that you do for underprivileged youth and youth that don't have the money to get into a gym. It's allowed you to really flourish, not just in terms of what we see with Deontay Wilder, but the grassroots boxing scene here in the state of Alabama.
Oh, absolutely. No question about it. It's opened so many doors. It's an amazing how it's happened. I tell people all the time that we started the gym in '90. We started doing shows in '95, opened our own gym in '97. So I said, we were basically at it for 10 years, 10 to 12 years before Deontay walked through the door. And I tell people all the time, if he'd come, 5 or 6 years earlier, I don't know that we would have known what to do with him. But the perfect timing of it was we had been around the world with some fighters. We knew which promoters and managers you could trust and which you couldn't. We had been burned and by people and all those things, so that when somebody came along with Deontay's potential and will and desire, we knew the lay of the land. And so that was the best thing that happened, was the timing. So we were able to chart a path that avoided the sharks in the business, and there are a lot of them. They say in boxing, you'll meet the best people you've ever met in your life and the worst people you've ever met in your life, and nothing in between. And so we were able to avoid the worst of the worst and kind of stay with the best of the best. And that has opened doors since Deontay, so that we can help a lot of kids, like you said, at our free gym, and also the kids at our gym here. The Golden Gloves program is looking great. We've got young professional fighters that are, trying to follow the path that Deontay has opened up. And so it's really been a fantastic thing to see.
You've done a great job, as you always do, of laying out exactly where we stand. It's April 3rd, as we talked this morning. Best case scenario, could this paperwork get done within a few weeks? Is there a chance we could see Wilder versus Joshua sometime this summer?
I think so. I mean, we are actively pursuing it. Joshua said it with his own mouth. He wants Wilder. You just played it. We have accepted that challenge, and I think that negotiations are such that one of my co-managers, Shelley Finkel, represented Vladimir Klitschko when he fought Joshua. So there is a template for the paperwork that had been done from that fight. Some of the things, of course, will change in the paperwork, but all the legalities and the legalese and all that stuff we don't have to reinvent the wheel. The basic template is there to look at, and we can use that, and that will speed things up. Of course, the money is going to be the big thing. That's Eddie Hearn has said, Wilder should be happy. He's going to make more than he's ever made in his life. And my counter to that is, well, Cam Newton was making $3 million a year, and when his first contract was up, he was one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, still is. And, they didn't go to him and say, hey, you were making $3 million a year. Here's $5 million. You should be happy. It's more than you ever made in your life. Right?
Right. Because they only made $2 million at Auburn, right, Jay? That's a joke.
That's good. But, he got a contract for approximately $20 million a year, because that's what the market for a premier NFL quarterback is. So that's our thing, right. Is the argument that, well, Deontay's made this much, we're going to give him a little more, he should be thrilled. Hopefully that doesn't even come up. It's all about the market. If the fight's going to bring in X amount of dollars, then the guys should get, a split of what's coming in. We are certainly willing to take the short end on the first fight, with the understanding that if we win the first fight, which we expect we will take, the majority on the back end, which I think everybody's in agreement in principle. It's really just coming down to the actual numbers. But to answer your question, yes, I think that if the other side is as fair and as eager to get this done as we are, you will see Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua in the summertime. I think probably August or September.
Awesome, man. We're so pumped up. We appreciate your time. One final question. Another fighter that you've got in your stable, Dion, the Equalizer Nicholson. I don't know. He can gain weight and lose weight. He's in such great shape. I don't know if he's fighting as a cruiserweight now or what, but how close is he to being ready to take that next step and make a push?
Oh, Dion is 6-0 with 6 knockouts, so he's a young professional. His best weight is going to be 175, which is light heavyweight. And I think his potential is unlimited. He is fighting in Texarkana on April the 14th, and then he will be back in Tuscaloosa fighting at the River Market, which is, of course, the city's beautiful building right there on the river, right, within a half a mile of the amphitheater. The River Market is going to be on Friday, May 25th. And we'll have tickets on sale here in about a week or two, and I'll be giving you a call to talk to you about that show. But it's going to be our Hall of Fame show, Alabama Hall of Fame inductions. Evander Holyfield is getting inducted this year. He will be there. Deontay Wilder will be there. Deontay's brother, Marcellus, will be turning pro, having his first pro fight. Dion Nicholson will be fighting. You can see where this is going. This is going to be a packed event, and this is exactly what we were talking about earlier, Gary. This is giving back and getting those young guys an opportunity to do what they do and opening doors for them. And that's why we want the public to support it.
Awesome. Going to be great. Jay, as always, I appreciate the time, man. And we're all, I think, pumped up here in Tuscaloosa that the Wilder Joshua fight is so close now. We can, as we say in the South, we can smell it. It's that close. Thank you so much, Jay.
Hey, thank you so much. It's getting close. We're excited. It never stops. I'm going to Arkansas, then we come back for the Hall of Fame show here, then hopefully right into camp with Wilder, getting ready for the biggest fight of quite a few decades.
Thank you.
We're excited.
Thank you very much, Jay.
Thanks, Gary.